So, how in the world did an ancient civilization with what we'd consider simple tools and just raw human power build something so enormous that it would be a major challenge for us even today? We're about to dive into the incredible engineering of the Great Pyramid of Giza, and trust me, the solutions they came up with are more brilliant than you can even imagine.
And our story really kicks off with a tiny robot. Deep inside the pyramid, researchers found this sealed stone slab, a doorway that hadn't been touched for millennia. So they drilled a tiny hole and sent a camera through, trying to get a glimpse of a secret nobody had seen in 4,500 years. So what was waiting for them in the dark? Well, to even begin to understand the answer, you first have to understand the impossible structure that robot was exploring.
So, before we get into the how they built it, let's just take a moment to really appreciate the what. Because the scale of the Great Pyramid is so vast, it's honestly hard to wrap your head around with numbers alone. Let's just start with the weight. The entire structure is estimated to weigh a staggering 6 million tons. Now, that number is so big it's almost meaningless, right? So what does that actually look like? Okay, try to picture this. That's the same weight as 12 Burj Khalifas, the tallest skyscraper in the modern world. And just remember, all of that was put together without a single modern crane. It's just mind-boggling. And that weight isn't one solid piece, of course. It's made up of roughly 2.3 million individual stone blocks. Most of them are huge, but some of the most important structural stones weighed up to 50 tons apiece. I mean, can you even imagine the logistics of just moving one of those, let alone millions?
And the sheer size of its footprint is just as crazy. The base covers 13 acres. That is so big, you could comfortably fit 9 entire football fields inside of it. 9!
So you've got this project that is just impossibly huge. Where do you even begin? Well, you start at the bottom, with the foundation. And right away, that presented two massive challenges that had to be solved with absolute, pinpoint precision.
First up, alignment. The Great Pyramid is aligned to true north, south, east, and west, with an accuracy that is just stunning, almost zero error. So how on earth did they pull that off without a compass or any modern surveying gear?
Well, the answer wasn't on Earth. It was in the stars. The engineers almost certainly used the polar stars, the ones that seemed to stay fixed in the night sky. By tracking them, they could plot the cardinal directions right there on the ground and create a perfectly oriented baseline for the whole building. So simple, but absolutely brilliant. Okay, challenge number 2 was even bigger, creating a perfectly level base. Remember, we are talking about a 13-acre area of uneven, solid bedrock. Even a tiny incline would spell disaster for a building this tall and this heavy. So how'd they do it? With no lasers. They used nature's own perfect leveling tool, water. The best theory we have is that workers dug a whole grid of trenches across the entire site and then just filled them with water. And since water always finds its own level, that created a perfect flat reference plane. All they had to do was mark that water line, drain the trenches, and then chip away all the rock down to that mark. And just like that, they had a massive, perfectly flat surface, all by using the most basic laws of physics. Incredible. All right, so the foundation is perfect. Now you need the building blocks. And oh boy, did they need a lot of them. This kicked off the next monumental task, carving and hauling stones on a scale humanity had just never seen before.
Now, the main body of the pyramid is made from limestone, but here's the problem. How do you carve millions of precise rectangular blocks out of a mountainside with only hand tools? I mean, pure copper is way too soft to cut stone effectively. Well, they had a bit of a technological secret weapon. The Egyptians knew that if you added a little arsenic to copper, you created a bronze alloy that was much harder, much more durable. So using these hardened chisels and wooden mallets, teams of workers could, hour after hour, just pound out channels in the limestone and eventually break free these huge, uniform blocks. Okay, so you've cut your blocks, but some of the most critical stones, like the granite for the chambers deep inside, came from quarries way over in a place called Tura, more than 250 kilometers away. And remember, some of these blocks weigh 50 tons. How on earth do you move that?
Again, let's just put that weight into perspective. A single one of these 50-ton blocks is the same weight as 3 modern passenger buses, and they had to move thousands of them without a single truck or piece of heavy machinery. Just wow. They used the ancient world's superhighway, the Nile River. This whole journey was a massive logistical operation. It's believed it took an army of over 500 workers just to load one of these monster stones onto a specially built ship. Then the stone would sail downriver to a port they built right at the Giza Plateau, all ready for the final brutal leg of its journey. And that brings us to the question that everyone asks about the pyramids. How in the world did they lift those blocks hundreds of feet into the air? Now, while no one knows for 100% certain, the two big theories both come down to one simple idea: ramps. One possibility is a massive single ramp that spiraled around the outside of the pyramid as it got taller. Another is a series of steeper, zigzagging ramps built right up one of the faces. Either way, the fundamental force was exactly the same. Huge teams of workers pulling these massive stones up long slopes using ropes, sleds, and just pure brute strength. But you know, the Egyptians saved their most difficult, their most impressive engineering challenge for the very heart of the pyramid. Because inside those burial chambers, they weren't working with that relatively soft limestone anymore. That's right. The crucial inner chambers, the ones designed to protect the pharaoh for all of eternity, were built from solid granite. And granite is one of the hardest natural materials on the planet. Those copper alloy chisels that worked on the limestone, totally useless here. So how did they cut it with such incredible precision? The solution is just an incredible piece of out-of-the-box thinking. They used saws that had no teeth. Instead, a simple copper saw blade was dragged back and forth over the granite. But as they sawed, they poured an abrasive material, like sand mixed with super hard quartz, into the groove. See, it wasn't the saw doing the cutting. It was the gritty, abrasive slurry ground into the stone by the saw's pressure that slowly, painstakingly wore its way right through the granite. This one technique tells you everything you need to know about them, their incredible patience, and their ability to plan projects that would take generations to finish. So let's recap. We've got celestial alignment, water leveling, special alloyed tools, river transport, ingenious ramps, and abrasive saws. The ancient engineers solved one impossible problem right after another. And yet, for all we think we figured out, the biggest questions are still out there. So why? Why go to all this trouble? What was the ultimate purpose of these secret chambers and hidden shafts? And that brings us all the way back to where we started, back to our little robot. So what happened? After drilling through that ancient stone slab, its camera pushed through and revealed another sealed door, this one with mysterious copper handles. It seems every answer we find in the Great Pyramid only leads to a deeper, more profound question. And maybe that is its greatest secret of all, a puzzle designed to last for an eternity.